Hello, and welcome back to another video. What if each team in the Premier League had to draft a squad instead of making normal signings? How would the league look? And would teams like City maintain their dominance? Well, I want to see how this could all play out. So I recreated every current Premier League squad and used FM24's fantasy draft game mode to make this experiment a reality. They only allowed players to be selected from the Premier League. However, this was last year's database, so some players have since left and others have joined. But let's just roll with it. I wanted to make this as fair as possible, so I randomized the draft order, and it was actually Manchester City who were given the first pick. But that's not always a good thing, as we operated using a snake draft. This meant that the order flipped after every team had chosen their picks. So Man City being given the first pick meant they didn't draft again until pick 40. Palace were given the last pick, so they got the first pick of round 2. The way this was set up meant I was in charge of all of these teams, but if the 15-second timer runs out, the AI in Football Manager would automatically pick for me. So that's what I did. About 500 times. So let's see what the AI cooked up. As I mentioned, we're going to start off with Manchester City, and they locked down Haaland. That Norwegian robot isn't going anywhere. But looking at current form, that's not really a bad thing. Bournemouth were given the second pick, and they chose Mo Salah, which is a very solid choice. Leicester were third, and they selected Heung-min Son, another quality player. My beloved Nottingham Forest were fourth, and we selected Gabriel Jesus. Oh boy. Arsenal were fifth, and they selected Nkunku from a fellow London side. Newcastle kept Isak as they were the sixth pick. Wolves were seventh, and didn't actually pick a Portuguese player, as they selected Darwin Núñez. Brentford went 8th and opted for Martinelli. Very bizarre choice from them there. Brighton were 9th and picked Jeremy Doku. We best hope that no players under 30 are picked. Tottenham were 10th and selected Evan Ferguson, who is very much under 30. Everton were 11th and picked Julian Alvarez. Their Merseyside rivals in Liverpool were 12th and selected Romelu Lukaku. Not really sure if Big Rom was the best choice here, but there you go. Manchester United were 13th and they chose Diogo Jota. And I'm sure they're praying a new FIFA game isn't released during the season. Villa were next up and they chose Jared Bowen. So he's still playing in claret and blue. Fulham had the 15th pick and they opted for Marcus Rashford. Chelsea were 16th and decided to keep Nicholas Jackson in West London. Southampton went 17th and they decided to bring Rasmus Højlund to the south coast. Ipswich were 18th and selected Moussa Diaby, so they yoinked him back from Saudi Arabia. West Ham were the penultimate side and they picked up Cody Gakpo. And finally, Crystal Palace with the final pick of the round, and they chose João Pedro from their A23 rivals. So let's have a look at each of these sides, the players they've selected, and what 11s they've cooked up. We're going to go through draft order and look at each of these 11s. So we're going to start off with Manchester City, who obviously went first, and obviously have Haaland up top, with Maddison Mudryk on the wings. Mudryk is a very interesting pick, given his performances in real life, and has just been exposed for a possible doping scandal. Couldn't really tell he's been doping, to be fair though, because he's been shit. Barkley and Mainu make him a midfield, with Udogie and Trent Alexander-Arnold acting as wing-backs. Adebayo, Timber and Zabani make up the back line, with Edison running in goal for the Citizens. They've also got the likes of Callum Wilson, Barco, Traore and Kiefer Moore on the bench, with Minter and Stansfield in the reserves as well. It's a very, very solid side. I don't think they'll be winning the league, given the rest of their squad, but it is quite a solid side nonetheless, and Maddison feeding Haaland could be dangerous. Moving on to Bournemouth now, and they've got Ivan Toney up top, dragging him back from Saudi Arabia, with Wang Hee-chan and Mo Salah on the wings. Already looking pretty good. I mean, Toney and Salah is scary, I'll say that much. Amadou Onana, Alexis McAllister and Basuma make up their midfield, with an all-English backline of Shaw, Guehi, Maguire and Walker, with Alisson finding himself in net for the Cherries. They've also got the likes of Hudson-Odoi, Clivert, Max Kilman and Dean Henderson on the bench. It's another quality side and one I'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Toney and Salah is a very dangerous combination. We then move on to Leicester City, and they have a very interesting looking side here. They've got Son up top, who's not exactly an out-and-out striker, but I guess it could work. Harvey Barnes is back in the East Midlands and on the wing alongside Ziyech. Gallagher, Bentancur and Phillips make up their midfield, with Robertson, Ake, Dawson and Rico Lewis at the back. And Emi Martinez is in net. They can also count Mings, Adingra and Cunha on the bench. Aina is in the reserves as well, which is a very decent side all things considered. Obviously, this is going off of last year, so players like Cunha haven't really exploded like they have this season. But if we're going off this season's performances, he's definitely in contention to start. But it's still solid side, all things considered. The better East Midlands side are up now with Nottingham Forest. For some reason, we've got Jesus up top. Christ. And it doesn't get much better with Sancho and Almiron on the wings. What are we doing? Boys, come on. We could pick any player in the Premier League. And we went with Jesus, Sancho, and Almiron. Jesus Christ. Kudus, Harvey Elliott, and Casemiro make up midfield, with Estupinian, Thiago Silva, Veltman, and Trippier in defence, just sitting in front of Vicario. Oh boy, this is definitely a team. I don't think we've been done nicely here. Casemiro and Thiago Silva might be the slowest bunch of players I've ever seen. The bench does have quality, to be fair, with the likes of Dominguez, Semenyo, and Romeo Lavia present, and I'd probably start some of those players above some of the ones that are starting currently. It's not all bad, but it's definitely one of the weakest lines we've seen so far, which isn't great when you consider we had the entire league to pick from. Looking at Arsenal now, and we start with Nkunku up top. Moved from West to North London, and fair enough. Smith Rowe finds themselves back at the Emirates alongside Sinistera on the wings. Eze, Szoboszlai and Matthias Nunes make up the midfield, with Zinchenko, Martinez, Kjera and Livramento in defence, with Raya staying in North London in net. They also have the likes of Ollie Watkins and Jared Banthwaite on the bench as well, which makes for a pretty strong side. I'd probably argue that Watkins should be starting over on Nkunku as well, but hey, what do I know? Clearly nothing. The AI knows best. Newcastle up next, and the first thing they did was keep Isak in the northeast. Very understandable. They've got Paqueta and Pedro Neto on the wings, which is also quite solid. Kovacic and Tonali make up the midfield, with Chilwell and Gusto acting as wing-backs. Pau Torres, Niakate and the beautiful Felipe are at the back, with Ramsdale in goal. Something that could have actually happened. They've also got the likes of Eriksen, Richarlison and Mikel Antonio on the bench, and also count Morgan Gibbs-White in their reserves, which is an absolute travesty. That boy is phenomenal. Moving on to Wolves now, and they've actually mixed things up here with both Brennan Johnson and Darwin Núñez up top. Philippe Coutinho finds themselves in the 10, with McGinn, Douglas Luiz and Jorginho completing the midfield. João Cancelo, Pinnock, Wesley Fofana and Dalot make up Wolves' backline, with Pickford finding themselves in net. The bench is pretty stacked as well, with the likes of Diego Carlos, Pap Sarr, Buendia and Raul Jimenez returning as well. But this is quite a good side looking at it, and I imagine they'll perform much better than they are currently, which isn't saying much to be fair. On to Brentford now, and they've got Nketiah up top, which is already an interesting choice. They have Martinelli and Mount on the wings. Fabio Vieira, Joe Linton and Tyler Adams make up that midfield, and the Bees have Tierney, Van de Ven, Anderson and Wan-Bissaka at the back, with Jose Sarr in net. Solid. They can count Ortega, Johnny Evans and Wissa on the bench. This is staying put in West London, and somehow not starting. But is he better than Nketiah? Yeah, I think so. It's a very interesting looking side. I don't really feel that's anything special. It's not mind-blowing, but looks solidly low mid-table if I had to guess. Looking at Brighton now, and they've got Doku playing that striker role, which I'm really not sure about. Mitoma remains on the south coast and is on the wing alongside Guedes. Ellie Anderson finds himself in the 10 and he'll absolutely cook. I'm such a big fan of that lad. What a player. Thiago and Kamara complete the midfield. Alex Moreno, Gabriel, Shaw and Semedo make up the back line, sitting just in front of Onana. My condolences, Brighton. Luckily though, they can count Sal's on the bench, alongside the likes of Danny Welbeck, Muniz and Morgan Rogers, also in the reserves. Nothing mind-blowing, but a very solid side. And the only weakness is probably Onana in net, really. Everything else is pretty solid. Tottenham are up next, and they've started strongly by sticking Evan Ferguson up top. McNeil and Mbeumo find themselves on the wings, with Sarabia occupying the 10, whilst Enzo Fernandez and Thomas Partey complete midfield. Terrible midfield, a nightmare midfield rotation, oh my god. A racist and a rapist, allegedly. What's going on? Tomiyasu, Konate and Lamptey make up the defence. So that's two players from Arsenal chilling in N17, with Pope finding himself in net. They can also see Dragusin, Kiana and Freuler on the bench, while Jed Spence is in the reserves. Unfortunately, realistic. The solid side, probably on par with their North London rivals. Moving on to Everton now, as the first of the two Merseyside outfits, and they've got Julian Alvarez up top, which is a quality pick. Reece Nelson and Madueke find themselves on the wings, with Andres Pereira in the middle of that 10. Caicedo and Cook complete the midfield, with Hickey, Vardiol, Concert and Patton making up that back line, just ahead of Steele. Tarkowski remains in Merseyside and finds us on the bench alongside Sarmiento, Archer and Omobamidele. Not a great side, but they do have flashes of quality throughout and could surprise a few people, I imagine. Dyche this is not. Then we take a look at the other Merseyside outfit with Liverpool. They've kicked things off with Lukaku, who they've stuck up top. Hamed Traore and Leon Bailey occupy the wings. Iwobi, Bruno Guimaraes and Baleba make up quite a solid midfield three. Tsimikas remains at Anfield as he joins Botman, Chambers and Reece James in defence, with Bernd Leno finding himself in net. Not sure how many games you get out of Reece James, hopefully more than like 4. Matty Cash, Broja and Byrne find themselves on the bench, with Adam Wharton in the reserves as well. It's quite an interesting team. I can't see this winning the league, unlike their current side under Slot. It's decent though, it's decent. On to the other Manchester side now, with Manchester United, and they've stuck Diego Jota up top. Fair play. They've got Trossard and Solomon on the wings. Bruno Fernandes remains Old Trafford, occupying in the midfield, alongside Moda and Palhinha. Varane also stays in Manchester, alongside Rico Henry, Kurt Zouma and Emerson Royal in defence, with Sanchez in net. They can also count on Souček, Solanke and Weghorst on the bench. Weghorst has finally made his return to Old Trafford. I'm sure he's buzzing about that, with Quanta and Bejic also in the reserves. Decent team, all things considered. Looking at Aston Villa now, and they've got Jared Bowen up top. He's not really a striker, but I guess he can play there, so fair enough. They've got Foden and Sharda on the wings, so I can see why Bowen was forced up top. Lo Celso finds themselves in that 10, while Gravenberch and Sangare complete the midfield. Emerson, Romero, Disasi and Tete make up their back line, with Petrovic in net. Palmer somehow finds himself on the bench, alongside Adebayo and Van der Beek. The likes of Kirkez and Enciso find themselves in the reserves, creating a very decent side for Villa, and one that should pushing for mid of the table, because that is pretty solid, I can't lie. Over to Fulham now, and they've got Calvert-Lewin up top. Not sure about that one, lads, especially looking at the bench, but, you know, we'll move. Their wingers are better, with Rashford and Gordon find themselves there. Havertz occupies the 10, which does look like his optimal position, to be fair, with Norgard and Endo completing midfield. Quality. Castagne, Colwill, Chalobah and Pedro Porro make up the defence, who protect Areola in net. They also boast a fair amount of quality on the bench as well, with the likes of Ward-Prowse, John Duran and Aït-Nouri present. All in all, this is quite the quality side, I'm not going to lie. Looks very solid. Not sure about Calvert-Lewin up top, but, you know, we've got Rashford and Gordon on the wings, so not really much to worry about in that regard. From one West London side to another, as we move over to Chelsea. Chelsea have Undav up top, with Garnacho and Nicholas Jackson on the wings. Academy lads Rice and Gilmore return to West London in their midfield, with Nuno Tavares and Bogle acting as wing-backs, with Van Heck, Gomez and Stones completing their defence. Trafford in net does not fill with much confidence though. Why? Why is Trafford in net? Their bench is full of quality as well, with the likes of Mavropanos, Martial, Murillo and Wood on the bench. Having Wood and Murillo on the bench is quite disrespectful if you ask me. At least they made the team. And then we move on to Southampton now, and they've got Højlund up top, with Curtis Jones and Sterling on the wings. Not the most thrilling of front threes, I can't lie, but could probably produce some really funny moments, so I'll give them that. They boast a midfield of McTominay, Edson Alvarez and Rodri, which is far better. They have a defence made up of Digne, Badiashile, Akanji and Moroslev, with Kepa in net. The Saints also have Lindelof, Lukic, Datra Fofana and Dyer on the bench, with Nico Williams, Lewis Hall, Andre Santos and Buonanotte all in reserves. A lot of individual quality, a lot of quality in reserves, but that doesn't feel like that good of a side, to be honest. Just looking at it, you know, Rodri's there, fair. McTominay, he also pops up sometimes. But yes, it's interesting. I don't really rate it, to be honest. Ipswich are up next, and they've got better up front, which is already not a great start. Luis Diaz and Moussa Diaby occupy the wings, whilst Odegaard sits in the 10, with Danilo and Skip completing the midfield. Kukureya, Saliba, Matip and Yankuto complete their backline, with Verbruggen in net. It's already not looking great for Ipswich, and their bench doesn't make things that much better, with the likes of Mitchell, Edouard and Lerma being present. Not gonna lie, I don't have high hopes for Ipswich here. Moving on to West Ham now, and they've opted to stick 2 up front, with Gakpo and Awoniyi leading the line. Grealish and Bonano bring some Man City flair to the wings, but they're in that current state, that's not really saying much. Lallana and Tielemans make up the midfield, whilst Robertson, Dunk, Ruben Diaz and Bradley make up their defence, with Neto and Rani all off in net. There's also a fair amount of quality on the bench as well, with Elise, Amdouni, Matson and Mateta all find themselves there. And we can't forget Big Willy Bolly in reserves. Very solid side from West Ham. Can they do better than they are currently? And finally, Palace, who had the misfortune of going last during the first round, but they made a decent pick with João Pedro up front. They've got Benrahma and Saka on the wings with a midfield three of Milner, De Bruyne and Kiwior. It's pretty solid. Reguilon, Virgil van Dijk, Ben White and Koufal make up the Eagles' defence, with Kelleher completing the lineup in net. On the bench, they can boast the likes of Malacia, Guehi and Scott. And we also see Kulusevski and Veliz in the reserves. That's quite a strong team from Palace. Palace could be shoo-ins for at least one title. I'm going to do 3 simulations, so at least one title. Jeez. So just going to take a look at the scores on the doors for the first game week. And this is how things ended up. So Villa and Southampton were held to a draw at 1-1. Bournemouth and Wolves were also held to a 1-1 draw. Brighton beat Nottingham Forest 1-0. Chelsea and Palace were held to a 0-0. Man City beat Everton 2-0. Fulham beat Arsenal 3-1. Liverpool and Brentford drew 0-0. Newcastle beat Man United 2-0. Tottenham and Ipswich were a 0-0 draw. And then West Ham beat Leicester 3-0. Pretty interesting. It's a shame Forest didn't grab a win, but Nuno is not at the wheel this time. It's unfortunately me. So that can't go well. Let's see what the scores are at the end of the season. And these are the scores on the doors for the final day. Palace beat Villa 1-0. Brighton beat Southampton 3-0. Arsenal beat Chelsea 1-0. Brentford saw Everton with a 2-0 win. Fulham held Man United to a 0-0 draw. Wolves beat Ipswich 1-0. Liverpool and Bournemouth were held to a 2-2 draw. Newcastle United fell to Leicester 3-1. Spurs and Nottingham Forest were held to a 0-0 draw. And West Ham and Man City drew 3-3. So let's see how that table looks. So after 38 games, this is what the Premier League looks like. Palace managed to clinch a Premier League title, winning the league with 66 points, followed by their rivals, Brighton, who had 62 points. So there wasn't much in it towards the end. West Ham are in third, 61 points, and Bournemouth round off a quite congested top 4 with 60 points, also shared with Spurs and Man United. Man City had quite the fall off as they finished in 7th place. Unfortunately, Nottingham Forest were relegated. You hate to see it, but we also took Leicester down with us, and Chelsea finished rock bottom of the league. I had high hopes for that Chelsea team, I think, and look where it got them. And this is how the scoring charts end up. So, top of the league, of course, Erling Haaland with 22 goals. Solly followed by De Bruyne, Crystal Palace's De Bruyne, who had 16 goals. And then Isak in third with 15 goals for Newcastle. Romelu Lukaku did decently as he scored 8 goals for Liverpool. And Doku actually didn't do too bad in the striker role. However, he only scored 7, alongside Jesus for Forest and Saka for Palace. Great news. If you want to look at the assists, you've got Bernardo Silva running away with it with 13 for West Ham, followed by De Bruyne again with 9, and Cody Gakpo also with 9, and Salah also with 9. Kulusevski and João Pedro both got 8 for Palace, with Kai Havertz and Szoboszlai grabbing 7 for Fulham and Arsenal respectively. We end our second season, much like the first one, with another Premier League title for Crystal Palace, this time with 69 points. Nice. And then, almost out of nowhere, Ipswich are second, just a point behind with 68, and Man City find themselves back up in third with 66 points, as Fulham round off the top 4 with 62 points. Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest and Man United find themselves in the relegation zone. That's 2 for 2 for Forest. It's not looking good, bro. It's not looking good. Firstly, I don't know how Palace are winning these 2 Premier Leagues and not having the top goal scorer. What's going on there? So this is the top goal scoring list. Of course, Erling Haaland once again tops the list with 26 goals, followed by Cody Gakpo for West Ham with 18, Brighton's Jeremy Doku with 15, Liverpool's Romelu Lukaku with 13, and 5th best striker in the league is Deniz Undav for Chelsea with 11 goals. Palace do have João Pedro and Kevin De Bruyne both on 10 goals, as well as De Bruyne and Saka being amongst the top assisters in the league as well. How far down do I have to go for a Nottingham Forest striker? Let's have a look. Oh, joint 15th is Gabriel Jesus with 8. Why did we draft him? And for the final season, we have a new Premier League winner in Bournemouth with 76 points. Then in second place, we have Manchester City, followed by West Ham and Everton gaining that final top 4 spot. Previous 2-time winners Palace find themselves in 5th, just a point off Everton, with their rivals Brighton 5 points behind them. Nottingham Forest avoid relegation by coming in 7th, which I'm very happy with. Leicester were relegated on 40 points, alongside Liverpool and rock bottom Southampton. So all in all, pretty decent season. I'm just happy to see that Forest weren't in the bottom 3 seasons in a row. That's all I cared about really, and I'm happy to see that was the case. In terms of top scorers, is Erling Haaland again. Shock. This time with 25 goals, followed by Ivan Toney with 17 and Evan Ferguson with 14. Forest actually see a new top scorer as Willian bagged 11 times in joint 6th place, and Gabriel Jesus even snuck in joint 11th with 10 goals himself. Kulusevski was the league's top assister this season with 10, followed by Bernardo Silva for West Ham and Harvey Elliott for Nottingham Forest, with Kevin De Bruyne nowhere to be seen. That drop-off has been monumental. Well, that was a very fun experiment to attempt, and I think it created some very interesting teams and some very interesting results. I did not have Palace or Bournemouth down as title winners, really. I think I said Palace could have won at least one, and they went on to do so. So, I got ball knowledge, but on the face of things, I would have classed those as title-winning teams. However, that's the beauty of the draft. I do plan on doing more experiments like these in the future, with both Football Manager and FIFA EAFC, whatever you want to call it. So if you have any ideas, please let me know down below in the comments, because I think it's a very fun thing to do alongside my other football content. I've been O2GT. If you have enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe down below. Hope you've had a brilliant year. Hope Santa brought you everything you may have wished for if you celebrate Christmas. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.